Hi, I'm Vikram Banerjee from the ECB,
I'm Sanjog Gupta from Disney Star in India.
and we've just come off the main stage at Leaders Week London.
We discussed the current state and the future of global cricket. Some really interesting discussions, a little bit of an argument, difference of opinion on how things stack up.
I hope you enjoy the session.
Vic, give us your views on global cricket as a sport, the potential, where can it go?
Yeah, hi everyone. I think cricket's in a really good place from where it is today to where it could be in 5-10 years' time. If you look around the world at the moment and you start at the very bottom, it is the fastest growing team sport in terms of participation, in terms of kids playing it around the world. It has obviously a huge amount of audience in the Indian subcontinent, but we've just had a successful World Cup in America and the West Indies. The MLC is burgeoning. We've got an LA Olympics coming up in 28, all to go on top of what we have in this country itself. So cricket as a sport, I think, is one of the very few, in my opinion, truly global sports. It has a huge amount of potential to continue to grow through that period. That's some change that we'll go through. But in terms of overarching potential, I'm excited about what might happen.
Brilliant. And Sanjog, your view?
I think I share the excitement, which is why we've spent the billions of dollars in rights that we spent on cricket. But I think for any sport, and particularly for a sport as big as cricket, it's an interesting and a challenging time. Because it operates in a media and entertainment ecosystem which has perhaps seen more disruption in the last 5 years than it had seen in the last 50. Largely driven by profound, irreversible, and far-reaching changes in consumer behavior. Let's just take stock of what we've seen being disrupted. There is a decentralization of platforms. So sport is no longer consumed on a single platform as it used to be till a decade back. You would tune in the telly at a certain time and you would watch sport. And now the same consumer is watching live sport on the telly, watching clips on social media platforms, chatting with his friends or with those that he or she wants to connect with on messaging platforms. So the entire way that sport is consumed has changed. Then you have the disaggregation of attention, which is also now being challenged by multiple sports, multiple media choices, multiple modes of entertainment and recreation. You have decentralization of content creation, democratization of content creation, which basically means that the asymmetry that existed between resources available to create content and consumers has disappeared completely. So anyone's a content creator now, and effectively, professionally generated content, or PGC, is now competing with relevant UGC. And finally, you have digitization, which is changing the way we do everything, from payments to what we expect from experiences to what we believe are modes of immersion. Everything's being challenged, and everything's changing more rapidly than ever before. So cricket and sport and media find themselves in this sea of disruption. And it is contingent upon cricket to understand what's disrupting the fan. And there isn't one fan. There are multiple cohorts of fans, all of whom are seeing different levels of disruption. And think about what it would take for cricket to continue growing. Because as Vikram said, if cricket's not growing and if it's not focused on growth, then in today's world, it will start decelerating, declining, or dying. If it's not growing, it is dying. So these are challenging times for sport and cricket in particular. Are there opportunities? As Vikram said, yes, there are. But I think we need to be more proactive, more nimble, and more future-focused and fan-focused than ever before if cricket is to continue to thrive.
And Vic, do you think cricket can win that battle? So when you talk about, everybody's fighting for that growth, do you think cricket can be the winner?
So I think so. Just to build on what Sanjog was saying, there is a huge amount of disruption, without question. And I think it's at times of disruption that we have to go back to the core. And the core for live sport is that one thing, that jeopardy of live sport in a world where people are consuming, and how my kids are now watching sport to how I did is so different. But we can all coalesce, whether it's on a big screen or a little screen, that live sport is what we tune in for and we watch, and that jeopardy is what people can come to. Now, all the things around it we have to change and be much more agile to, but we have to remember the beauty of what sport can bring, and that tribalism and that connection to the players and the teams are something that sport has that nothing else has. And then I think within, and my world, especially within cricket, I think we have a real opportunity to win in that battle for attention, as I would call it. I think the important thing is to do that, we can't stay still. We have to continue to move and continue to adapt and grow, but I don't see any reason why we can't do that and win.
Sanjog, a really interesting question actually from the audience. When you talk about change and the need to continue moving, somebody's asked, you recently joined a World Cricketers Association task force aimed with fixing global cricket. What's broken?
I think there are multiple forces perhaps working against each other, and all of which come down to one simple thing. What does cricket look like for the fans? What is the product or the suite of products that we believe will achieve the objective of growth, which both Vikram and I believe is the only imperative. For example, there is a conflict between the number of days of franchise cricket being played around the world and bilateral cricket, which has been the foundation of cricket for years, since it existed. Now, but the player pool is the same. So how do you build out a calendar of cricket which serves the product that fans want, leveraging best the resources available, and the only resource is really the athlete, and optimize for this function across 3 different formats: franchise, bilateral, and multilateral cricket, and players who now want to play multiple leagues, multiple formats, and are picking and choosing, and balance it for fans on one side and players on the other. And that, to my mind, is the biggest question that cricket needs to answer, which is, if cricket puts the fan at the center of everything, and as I said, it's not one fan, what's the ideal suite of products that cricket wants to operate with to grow and to preserve the legacy which is important for the game?
I think it'd be really interesting to hear the athlete's view shortly with Tammy and Jos. But Vic, unless the audience have been buried under a rock, then they may not have heard that the ECB recently announced that it would be seeking investment into the 100, the great disruptor, maybe many would say in English cricket. But why did you decide this was the right time for attracting investment, and where do you think this can take the future of the competition?
The first thing to note is the 100 for us and English cricket has been hugely successful. There are people, not myself, that can take a lot of credit for what it's done in 4 years. To Sanjog's point, it was unashamedly fan first and audience first in all the research that we did and the way that it has been designed and built. And the stats, we're proud to say that the stats have backed that up in terms of the demographics that come, the type of people that are playing, what it's done for the women's cricket, and so on and so forth. But where we are now is that when you look at where the 100 can get to and where it should get to, and the excitement and the opportunity that we have, we're at a stage now where what's got us to that point won't now get us to the next point. There is an opportunity, in my opinion, that the 100 has in what it's done and what it's built. You look at some of the things that we were speaking about before and where cricket is going globally, and frankly, things that we are not in control of, right? 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in the UK can be broadcast around the world quite nicely. We have all these things coming together so that the 100 can become a truly global product. In August, where there's not a lot of other sports being played around the world, and we can own that calendar month, and we can create something for the fans, not just in the UK, which is what we've done so far, but around the world, that brings all the, the best men's and women's players together, continues to be a driving force for women's sports, which we've done to this point, but if we stay still, some other people will take over. So that truly global product now is what gets us out of bed and what gets us excited about what really can happen. But to do that, we're a governing body. And I can say this because I work in one, that's not us. We need support and expertise and skills to help us to get there. People, like Sanjog, that knows audiences around the world intrinsically. What do they need? If we're talking about family audiences, who is the best in the world at engaging them through social media and these new platforms? Who is the best at in-stadia experiences? And let's get them all together. Let's bring them all together and create something that can really fly.
So is that your vision, the vision of the breadth of investor and partner, really, for the game? All of the different expertise coming together, hoping to drive growth?
Exactly. At its base, it's a relatively simple vision, actually, in the sense that I think we can be one of the world's best global products that just so happens to be cricket, and it just so happens, in many senses, to be hosted in England and Wales. But to do that, the old adage again, that diversity will drive us forward. If we can bring people from around the world, and we've spoken to people from America, from this country, from India, Australia, Singapore, if we can bring them all together, then, I have no more hair to lose for that board table meeting. But other than that, I think it will be brilliant.
Excellent. Sanjog, since 2008, there can be no better benchmark in global sport than the IPL, really. Phenomenal growth, record-breaking audiences, broadcast value through the roof. But what's the secret? What's been the secret to the success of the competition?
Wow. I don't think it's one thing. I think IPL's gone through two phases, really. One was the phase between 2008 and 2017, where IPL benefited from being a truly global T20 league, and one of a kind at a time when there was no other cricket being played in April, May in India. It greatly benefited from being a concept that was truly novel. So there was a lot of novelty benefit that came to the IPL in its first few years. And I think credit to the BCCI for constantly looking to innovate with the IPL. Be it in terms of rules, be it in terms of breadth of players, be it in terms of being true to fans before anything else. And I think the first 10 years of the IPL were a lot about that. I think in 2017, when we acquired the rights for IPL, and I was mentioning this to someone earlier, most people believed that our bid was preposterous. Since then, the total value of the IPL in terms of rights has tripled. But between 2018 and 2023, I think IPL went deeper than ever before. Despite being a mature league, it realized that it was still not reaching to 70% or 60% of India. We've seen IPL grow from being a 400 million viewer league to today being a 700 million viewer league, reaching many more people than ever before. I think the collaboration between the BCCI and the broadcast rights holders has been one focused on growing IPL. And I think that obsession with growth year on year really drives the IPL and drives the agenda around IPL that the broadcaster has. And look, there have been certain factors which have been unlocked beyond anyone's control. Data in India has become ubiquitous and cheaper than in any other market, which has allowed more than 200 million unique viewers to watch IPL on the small screen, who didn't have access to the IPL before that because they didn't have a living room device. So there have been both controllable and uncontrollable factors. I think the obsession with growth is really what has driven the growth of IPL. And I think the BCCI's openness to work closely with the broadcast rights holders, as well as constantly look to drive what would be the next phase of innovation, has powered IPL's growth.
Some comments coming through from the audience of how it's great to hear about the ambition and growth and development, but we've now got, I think, 17 short-form franchise cricket competitions around the world. Question for both of you, really. Sanjog first. What does the future look like in terms of consolidation, in terms of how you resolve that challenge? Because surely that is one of the biggest ones facing the game.
Yeah, and it affects every part of the game. In fact, going back to the question you asked me, cricket has a problem of plenty. I don't know if there is any other sport which has 3 formats actively being played at the scale that cricket has. When England comes over to tour India for test matches, 110 million viewers tune in, which is not a small number. Yes, IPL is watched by 700 million, which is a much larger number, but you can't take for granted 100 million viewers who really care for test cricket. So you're looking to preserve 2 formats which are very different, but you're also trying to grow the game. Then you have, as I said, this mode of competition, and it's not just 2, it's bilateral, it's franchise, and then it's ICC as well, right? So you also have multilateral cricket. And it affects consumption and watch time, and at times you have too much cricket being played simultaneously. It also means that you dip into the same pool of capital available with rights holders, and effectively there's lesser available to everyone, or maybe more available to the marquee events, but lesser available to the mid-tier and the low-tier events. And then you have T20 competitions, which are, as you said, quite a few around the world, but you also have T10 being played. So actually the number of independent leagues being played around the world is much more than 17. So it's a problem of plenty that cricket has, and ultimately you'd believe market forces would dictate what happens with the game, but in the interim there is going to be flux, and there's flux for fans, but there's also flux for players. There have been multiple instances where players within 3 weeks have played 3 different leagues. And that creates immense confusion, but it also erodes capital, and it erodes value both for fans and for those leagues, because there is no affiliation that is being built. And over a period of time, one hopes that players will wisen up to the fact that it destroys value for them as well, because that affiliation actually helps them. So I think one way of thinking about it is, do you want to regulate and solve the problem? And the other way of thinking about it is, do you just let market forces dictate what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah.
And hope for an equilibrium to be reached.
And Vic, through the lens of the ECB and the 100, same question, really.
Yeah, I think it's the impossible question of where it lands. I do think it's unsustainable. I think those that will rise to the top will be those that have a focus on the audience and the players. I think those are the two, who gets the best players, who has that domestic audience and foundation will win. The only thing, not to repeat a lot of what Sanjog said, but the 17 leagues are in the men's game. I think what's really interesting now for world of cricket and sport is, so the women is at the moment a lot less. Can we create something that doesn't go through all the ups and downs and potential mistakes, if I can call it that, of the men's game, and kind of jumps to the answer and jumps to something that's sustainable and audience-led, and as that grows in a much more sustainable way.
Excellent.
I'll just add very quickly one quick thing. I think cricket's priority needs to be to ensure there are new fans, there are new teams, there are new markets, there are new products, such as women's cricket, and there are new streams of revenues. Because you don't want to be in a situation where the problem of plenty starts destroying value at a pace which is much higher than the pace at which value is being created. And the more focused we are on growth and the 5 new elements that every portfolio of products needs, the better shape cricket will be in.
Excellent. Well, that brings to a close our first innings. Please show your appreciation for Vikram and for Sanjog. Bottom. Thank you, bottom.
Well, I take the chance.
Hello.
Sometimes I make mistakes, but you don't get nothing unless you take the break.
That's the administrators out the way. Now we'll get to the star attraction. Tammy, we've got to start with the elephant in the room, I'm afraid. Views on the last few days?
Yeah, a really tough day for the girls last night. I guess it goes to show kind of the global games on the rise, and losing to the West Indies, losing one bad game in a World Cup can knock you out these days. And I'm sure the girls are pretty gutted over there in Dubai.
Yeah, and Jos, pretty entertaining test match underway?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, never seen a game played on the same wicket again. It's certainly, at some point, I'm sure will accelerate. It still looks pretty good for a day 6 or whatever it is, 7 now. But I think the first test was unbelievable, and I think it's credit to the England team that the way they've been playing their test cricket, they can force a result on that kind of surface.
And are you excited to see Bazball come to the white ball game as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he'll be asking people to play any differently, will he? So,
No.
He's obviously had a great few years with the Test side, been incredibly successful as a captain in New Zealand, and I think there's quite a link with white ball cricket in England, with sort of trying to copy and be influenced by the New Zealand team in the 2015 World Cup, which Baz was leading. So, it'd be great to get to work alongside him and have his influence across all of England cricket.
I think it's really easy on a day like today, when you've got lots of sports leaders kind of in one place, you almost forget about the athletes and what sits at the heart of the product that drives the media rights value, that means that we all get up in the morning and go and do our day jobs. So, Tammy, just talk us through a little bit your kind of views on the global game, where it stands now, and really the impact of short-form cricket on the development of the women's game, which, outside looking in, just looks like it's really motoring forward.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be part of women's cricket in particular. I think, 8 years ago we won the World Cup at Lords, and we didn't think it would have the impact that it did, and we actually sold out Lords for the first time, and I remember hearing that was the goal, and I just thought there's no way 26,000 people are going to come and watch us at Lords, and it happened, and ever since then, and thanks to the 100, the WPL, the game's just going from strength to strength, and it's great to see, the investment that the ECB have put into it, and now it's not talked about as an afterthought. It's now at the key to a lot of broadcast deals, at the key to a lot of negotiations. It's about how quickly can we accelerate the growth of the game, and catch the men up and get some gender parity going on, and it's certainly on the way to getting there, which I think is incredibly exciting. Whereas almost before COVID, it was a bit of a pipe dream, to be honest.
Yeah, I think sat here over the last few years, there's been like real distinguishment, conversation between men's and women's sport. And actually what's quite refreshing about the session we just had is we didn't really get there until right at the end, and it was about learning lessons and how we can get to the answer quicker. I think shows that the industry is moving forward on that front. It's quite refreshing. But Jos, we heard a lot there about player load, and here at Twickenham for years the conversation about the rugby calendar has been top of the agenda. We're hearing footballers come out now and talk about the possibility of striking. How do you pick and choose your load, because it must be overwhelming at times?
At times, but I think there's also an element of privilege to that as well. I think sometimes you be careful what you wish for and say, I need more time off or whatever, but actually it's amazing that those opportunities are there, and I think that's where you have to be quite disciplined as an individual, and as you as a player and your own brand or whatever you want to call yourself, to what what is the best thing for me in terms of I don't just want to jump at everything and be burnt out and actually not giving the best of myself in whichever team I play for and stuff. So trying to be disciplined and say, look, this is what fits for me, and at times that will be different, in sort of different stages of your life it might be different, or your international commitments, etc. So I think it's just being smart around that, trying to pick what allows you to play at your best level, but also realizing that the difficulty I see for players is there is a finite time on your career, and someone you could fall over outside, and then those opportunities never come. So there's a balance to be found, but it is great that those opportunities are there. And I think in terms of growth for players, it always, going back years, it would be international cricket was like the pinnacle, and you had to get to play for England to reach those levels, or play in front of big crowds and sort of have those financial rewards. Whereas now there's loads and loads of opportunities. It doesn't have to be sort of select for just 11 players playing in the international team. There's now players who are sort of strict franchise cricketers and incredibly well rewarded for that, and players who may be on the cusp of international cricket, but they're getting exposed to high pressure situations in incredible leagues, rubbing shoulders with best players in different places. And then I don't see that jump to international cricket anymore. I feel like you see a lot of players come into international cricket and fly straight away because of the experiences and exposure they're getting in different leagues around the world.
And the short forms of the game have been incredible for both of your careers. Talk us through Jos first, Tammy, then what's the difference between the competitions? So for you, the IPL versus the 100, does it feel different? What's the difference?
It is different. I don't feel like anything really competes with the IPL. For naturally, in India, that it's the biggest tournament in the world, and I think it always will be. But I think what the 100 has the possibility to be is right behind that, and the second best tournament in the world. I think we've got they're only really scratching the surface, I think, in England still of where we can take a franchise tournament to. The men's and the women's being side by side, those kind of things are great for the tournament, and we have all the infrastructure, the leagues, and now hopefully great people from around the world with great minds and experience of how to really build a tournament or a franchise team themselves to hopefully come into it and push it on even further. So I think we've been crying out for a tournament like the 100 in England for many, many years. We finally got there, but we're still, I'd say, at the start of where it can go.
And Tammy, for you, development of short form game, just fantastic really for the women's game and for your own career.
Yeah, I think particularly the T20 in the women's game has been the real game changer. I think the fact that obviously the 100, it's very much about the men and the women together, but even in developing nations, you can do double headers to gain a lot more of exposure to the women's game and build that interest from there and build it up. I know years ago we used to play before the men over here in England for England internationals, and that certainly got some interest into the women's game, but there becomes a point where in international cricket it needs to kind of separate, because you end up with specific women's cricket fans, men's cricket fans, and it's a slightly different demographic, so it does kind of link in some ways. I think for me the 100's been a real game changer for the women's game. The fact that it has had the double headers, the one city, two teams aspect, it really feels like an event, and actually sometimes international cricket's playing catch up to how the 100's received. You get such big crowds. We played in front of 20,000 for a domestic final this year at Lord's, and then we go back and play in Ireland at a club ground. But that's where kind of Ireland cricket is at, and many other countries are in a similar situation, that they're not as far progressed as, say, England, Australia and India, which, really important to see how the WPL progresses for the women's game in the next couple of years, I reckon.
And with respect to the 100, it's so topical at the moment. I've got to ask one question about the impact of investment. As players, does that kind of just brush aside? It's something you don't think about? Do you think it can have an impact and change the way the game works?
Actually, I think at Welsh Fire we've certainly spoken about it. A lot of the players were talking about it by the end of the season, and it's something that you're kind of keeping an eye on. I think it's brilliant for the 100, and it's certainly necessary, but as a player, I hope it isn't just about who's the highest bidder. It's actually who's going to invest in the team, who's going to invest in the tournament. You know, as captain at Welsh Fire, when I went there, we wanted to really connect to a community and make it, you know, really Welsh and connect to that, albeit that I'm very English, as are pretty much 14 of the squad. But actually, you know, what makes Welsh Fire unique is we are representing a country that has got its very own unique character. And, you know, they see rugby as, you know, it's in their blood, and that's something that we want to tap into, how passionate they are. So actually, whoever invests there, we're desperate for them to buy into that concept and it not just become, you know, another team that they're just throwing money at and wanting to make their own. We want them to buy into what we've hopefully shown and shown the world stage as kind of Welsh Fire. But I guess we'll wait and see on that one.
Yeah, and just for you, obviously, Manchester Originals, they're big on the brand and trying to create the identity across the competition for you. Can this investment, can that improve that? Can it help all of those factors?
Yeah, I think so, by sort of decentralising it and making it more individual to those particular teams. You get the right investors in who may have a track record of building a brand and a team somewhere else, and can really, I think that as a player, you want to be a part of something that's best in class. So I want someone to be able to come in and improve the team, the way we play, the way we operate, the way we connect with the fans, and just make it bigger and better. And I know that needs financial investment. I was listening to the guys before, there's a lot of competition, there's this problem of plenty and so much cricket. So I think what we do need in England is the ability to draw the best players in the world here. And obviously to do that, probably you need the tournament. And I know, speaking to players, they enjoy playing in the 100, they enjoy coming to England for various reasons, but obviously financially we need to be able to, you know, reward the players to come here and choose this as opposed to somewhere else. And you want players, I think, to come and stay. I think one of the problems sometimes in the franchise leagues is someone signs a 4-game deal here and then they move on to another tournament and another tournament. You want, as a fan and as a captain, I want to know I've got the same 15 from the start till the end. And you know, you want to develop heroes with those franchises, right? And so if you sign, you know, Andre Russell for a team, you want to know that if we get to the final, Andre Russell will be there and playing for that team. So I think that's a big part of the investment and building the brand of the 100 and making it an even better tournament than it is already.
I have the privilege of working across sports, and cricket is really held up in terms of what it's done in terms of moving towards parity, or a better form of parity than we have today. And just what role can male players play as allies in the growth of the women's game, in your view?
Yeah, I think as Tammy mentioned, the eyes on the game are great for having the double headers on the same game. You know, the two teams from the same city. Those kind of just tapping into that eyes. But I think, like you say, you're starting to see that. You know, standalone. I'm sure the girls want their standalone events as well. You know, they want to be their own thing. But I'm a dad of 2 young girls, and I think I'm excited about for them is that they will grow up with this. They don't see some of the barriers that the girls have faced already. They will have heroes straight away. You know, they'll watch the TV and just see girls playing cricket, and that's normal for them. And they will. I like that one. I'm going to support that team, and they see a future, and they won't have seen those barriers, which I think is fantastic, and I'm excited about for them to grow up with that and to have that ability to have their heroes right in front of them.
And Tammy, when I've watched the women's game in the past, the engagement with fans, it feels different. It feels as though there's a real connection, as though it's kind of building over time. What role do you think the players can have in growing the game, inspiring that next generation?
Well, I think it was said before, wasn't it, that, you know, there's 2 stakeholders, the fans and the players that are really at the heart of it, and actually keeping that connection, as you say, is one of the most important things, and it is something that as an England team we really pride ourselves on. You know, it really wasn't that long ago that we were amateurs and pretty much our parents and a dog came to watch the games. So actually playing in front of fans now, for us, we definitely see as a privilege and something that we want to keep continue. And the same people have come for kind of the last 10 years, and now they're having to wait in line to get an autograph, and it's getting to the point that it's hard to actually engage with every single fan, and it's great to see, but it's almost, we see it as a legacy that we want to leave that cap in a better place for the next people, the next generation. And for me, it's not just about speaking to every young girl, it's about speaking to young boys as well, because just like Jos says, they grow up to be fathers to daughters, and for them it's normal to see women play sport, and for me, I don't mind if it's cricket, football, whatever, but I just think any young girl should have opportunities to take part in sport, because I just think it's brilliant, and have the same opportunities as a boy at the same age.
Absolutely. The title of the conference is obviously Leaders, and you're both leaders on the pitch. What advice would you share with the room? What have your experiences been of leadership? Tammy, perhaps first.
I think the biggest lesson I learned was to make sure my face didn't give the game away quite often. But also I think the big one for me, Welsh Fire, is what I try to do is to empower my teammates, empower my players to make decisions for themselves. I've never bowled a ball in professional cricket, so how can I tell one of the best bowlers in the world what to do? She's the expert in herself, so it's just about providing ideas and trying to draw that expertise out of her and letting her kind of take as much ownership as possible.
And Jos?
Yeah, got lots of good and bad experiences, I think, but I think the thing I've been reflecting on most recently is that it's no different to your own game. You're always trying to learn, and you're always trying to develop. You're always trying to be better, and I think it's investing the time in that. With sometimes it's easy sometimes as a player to be helped, but as a captain, making sure you find the right people or mentors to help you and develop that side of your leadership. I think you always have to be yourself. Try and be authentic. I think as soon as you're someone different, the people around you who've been around you before sort of notice that, and it sort of, I'd say, devalues your leadership in that sense. And I think leading from the front makes it a lot easier if you can look after your own game and play well and show people the way you want to play. I think that is empowering, and I think it's Nelson Mandela's book, actually. There's a nice line in there about he feels leadership's like being a good shepherd. Let the young ones run free and give them the freedom to go and express themselves, and you're just gently nudging them in the right direction that you want to take them. So that's certainly something I've tried to remember, and like I said, you do have to, like Tammy said, give that element of freedom and let people express themselves and not be sort of constrained at all. And I think that's been a big change in sort of leadership over the last 10, 20 years. I think the hairdryer treatment's kind of gone, hasn't it? And it's about how do you empower people, but also, you need to find a level of accountability as well. But I think there's some really interesting ways people do that I've noticed.
Yeah. So just with a couple of minutes to go, so are you both optimistic for the future? Are you positive about the growth of the game, where it can go? Tammy?
Yeah, I think you've seen the women's game just go from strength to strength, and hopefully it will keep complementing the men's game, and we'll find a way to fit all the cricket in that seems to have to happen every year. And no, I certainly feel like we're on such a great upward trajectory, and one day we'll get on parity with the men.
Yeah, very excited for cricket. I think, especially around the 100, I think the opportunity here is incredible, and I just hope that, from a player's point of view, you just want to see it get to where, you really believe it can do, and be that. As I said, I think the IPL will always be out there on its own, but I want, us in England to have the second best competition in the world, and I truly believe we've got everything you need to do that, so really hope it happens, yeah.
We're sometimes a bit shy about that, aren't we?
We should.
We should.
Exactly.
It's very British, isn't it?
Very British, yeah, exactly.
And we shouldn't be, because I think the opportunity is right there, and the time is, if it's not now, it was before. So you've got to do it right now and make best of it and really go for it. And because, like you said, there is so much other stuff out there that you don't want anyone to jump ahead and take that slot in a way. So but it's exciting, and I think, like I say, what it's achieved in a short time, and I know it's been a bit of a disruptor, and I think that's great as well. You know, it's created divided opinions in different spaces. But when you see what I think the other thing I'd like investment into cricket to do in the 100 is develop grassroots cricket elsewhere, you know, and be a part of that in developing the game and getting more boys and girls playing cricket. Because if they don't play cricket, then cricket won't continue.
Jos, Tammy, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for your time. I can't deny I had to take a deep breath before meeting you both, so it's been an incredible privilege to share the stage with you, and hopefully everybody will show their appreciation for Tammy and Jos.